Greetings everybody, I'm Steve Nelson and we're here at the Fort MacArthur Museum. Today we're going to see a little bit of how the country used to defend its fortifications. This one in particular is Los Angeles' own Fort MacArthur Museum. Come along with me. So the gun that we're looking at right here is called a 155 GPF. That doesn't mean anything to anybody except that it shoots about a 6-inch shell. So about as wide as my fingers, about that long, weighs about 100 pounds, and it'll go out 11 miles. These guns were designed to hit the ships that came in under the big guns that we'll talk about a little bit later. There were 20 of these defending the port of Los Angeles during World War II. Okay, so here we are at the gun pit. At one time this used to house a 400-ton gun carriage with a barrel that was about 50 feet long, and it fired a shell about 1,450 pounds, and it could put that shell out there about 13 miles or so. The shell itself would be an armor-piercing shell. It was designed to hit battleships and would go in and blow them up and do all the destruction it could, anything to protect the harbor. The other thing you might want to consider is old facilities like this, maybe even though they're not human, maybe treat them like they are a human. They don't have a voice, but the artifacts themselves can speak to you. So that's why we believe in preserving and taking care of this, because most of the men that have served here are long since gone and have no voice. So as we walk through the tunnel, we'll do a little time travel, and I'll try and take you back into the 1940s and what have you, and show you some good functioning equipment. Okay, we're about to enter the MIT, the Mechanical Indicator Tunnel, and it's very dark. It's very bright out here, so it'll take a moment for your eyes to adapt. You just take your time and we'll head down the stairs and we'll go to the other side of the battery. And welcome to the MIT, the Mechanical Indicator Tunnel. Above your head there would have been a cable system that would control a series of indicators out at the gun, and they would match the indicators inside the plotting room, which is where we're headed now. Up into the plotting room. Okay, everybody out? Because last time I lost a couple down there. Okay, welcome to the plotting room. In this room, this table would have had a map that replicated the Santa Catalina Channel, and what that would do, it would allow you to figuratively plot a course for an attacking ship and a point of impact for your guns. And the way that you would communicate that is through these headphones and these telephones over here. So you basically pick one up, crank it, it would ring. You to get somebody on the other end, you'd say, you know, set guns to XYZ, and away you went. This room was silent, except for the communication going on the telephones, and there would have been about 11 or 12 guys in this room, each of them on a phone, monitoring it constantly for any subtle changes in the target's direction, range, or what have you. A very important room. What I'm putting on now is a telephone communications headset, and what this did is, this was on what's called an open loop. And so you would constantly speak into this. So this would be somebody who was plotting the ship out at sea, would actually use this and constantly update the progress of the ship. In the meantime, more information would come in saying where the gun was located, and if the gun is on target and what have you. It takes about 30 seconds to get a plot, and once you have the plot, you keep the plot, and then you just make adjustments to that every 30 seconds. And the gun crews could fire about 1 round per minute out of each gun. The telephone was reliable. It was a good source of communication. However, in a combat situation, telephone lines can be torn, can be broken, can fail to work, and in which case you have speaking tubes as your emergency backup. These will never fail. You simply open the valve, speak into one end. When you don't want to be heard or you don't want to hear anything else, you close the valve. So these are the fail-safe secondary backup, if you will. You know, you back up your computer. This is how you back up communications in a fort.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Lacey, in charge of the communications suite here on Fort MacArthur. Now, we have restored this room to be as it was at the beginning of World War II, or throughout World War II, excuse me. And it's behind many layers of steel reinforced concrete and splinter-proof doors and such. So come on and check it out. So this room was gas-proofed. So in the event of an enemy gas attack, they had an overpressure system and a decontamination room. So when you came into this room during a gas attack situation, you wouldn't drag any poisonous gases in there with you. So as you came into this room from the contaminated area, you'd step on this treadle and blow the poisonous gases off of you, and then open the inner door and go on into the communications room. So this room was originally the fire control switchboard room for the fort. So all the phone lines from all the gun emplacements and elsewhere on the fort came in these cabinets here and could be switched to different telephone circuits in the fort. Now we've restored this to be a World War II communications center. So all the radios, telephone equipment, just about everything they used to communicate during World War II, we've got set up and functioning in this room. So like here in this rack, we've got BC 779 receivers that work in conjunction with the 32RA transmitter. We've got a BC 441 transmitter or transceiver over there. We've got some Morse code practice equipment here, a receiver trainer, and so during World War II, they would use Morse code almost exclusively for long-range communication. The high-frequency radio waves would actually refract off the ionosphere of the Earth and be able to bounce the signal all the way around the globe. And so Morse code would travel farther than voice communication just by virtue of the science behind it. And you see Morse code operations throughout World War II all over the world. So this side of the room, we have a lot of our high power equipment. So you see we've got gigantic transmitters that were designed to communicate globally. And this one is able to do Morse code or voice. Same with this one. So this is the BC 669. The thing about these old World War II radios is they've got big, huge vacuum tubes in them that glow. Alright, so in our safe here we keep our World War II crypto gear. See, anybody with a radio receiver of any kind could listen in on Army conversations. So they would have special top secret encryption gear, some of which we have here today. This is the M209B converter, and during World War II this was extremely classified. And so every 24 hours you'd get a new set of settings to put into this machine where you'd rotate these rotors and pins, and then anytime you had a message you needed to encrypt, you would take each letter of that message, align it with this white hash mark, rotate this black knob, and it imprints a different letter in its place on this tape here, and so it turns your entire message into gibberish. And then you take that gibberish message, take it to your Morse code operator, and it'll send the gibberish even though it doesn't make any sense. You got somebody listening with a radio receiver who would write down all that gibberish on a typewriter, and then they'd take it to somebody with one of these machines, and if they have the right settings in the machine, they can turn that gibberish message back into a sensible message. Alright, so another method of communication during World War II that was extremely widespread was the use of teletypes. So the idea behind a teletype is you can send a mass amount of information quickly where the only skill necessary is the ability to type. You can kind of think of it like the ancestor of the fax machine. It was the first digital device for sending information over long distances. So we've got two machines next to each other here in a teletype loop to show how they work, but typically you'd have machines talking to each other through phone lines or over radio teletype over long distances. So the way it's set up, anything I type into this machine will type over there. For example,
so where we are now is we're in the battery commander's position. And so what the battery commander is he controls the gun and he controls all the men. And he controls them all from this position. This telescope, it's called a battery commander's telescope, would actually visually sight the target, and through a series of grids here would actually scale out where the target is and would relay that information to the gun crew. So the gun crew would match their data to what the data shows on not just this scope, but on other scopes that are related to it. So what you usually have to make a battery work, like a human eye, we got 2 of them. The distance apart is the baseline for the triangle, and you use triangulation to find your target. Unlike a human being, our fort has multiple sets of eyes in case one of them gets knocked out, or 2 get knocked out. You always have backups. A change of target, the target is destroyed or no longer in range, you can rapidly move this by swinging it this way or this way by moving this caging switch. But when you do fine adjustments, you lock it in place, and now you can do the very, very fine adjustments. And right now we are looking out at Catalina Island with a very hazy day, but this is the telescope, the type of telescope that would have been used here anywhere from, let's say, 1920 up through 1945. Okay, so one of the interesting things about the fort is we focus a lot on history, but there's also a lot of natural stuff going on here. And we just found inside this room, we found a dead scorpion. And I've never, in 23 years of working here at the museum, I have never seen a scorpion on the property, and it's really exciting. But I can tell you that we've seen bird life, we've seen kestrels, we've seen red-tailed hawks, red-shouldered hawks, peregrine falcons, great blue herons. We saw great blue herons on our grass the other day eating gophers. So you can imagine that it's great to come here for the history, but if you're a nature buff too, you can see all kinds of animals and creatures. And like I said, I wouldn't get too close to the scorpion, but this one's dead. But that's a first time for me. I'm very excited to see that, and I might put him in a little case and just keep him as evidence. So this is the type of shell that was fired from our guns here. This is an armor-piercing shell. It's 1,460 pounds. I'm going to show you something kind of interesting though. Listen to this. It's not very impressive sounding, is it? It's because this area is hollow. All of this is a windscreen to help this. This is the armor-piercing core. So all this does is help the shell fly true in flight, and then once it hits an enemy target, this section here will hit it at supersonic speed and just impact and immediately break up. As it does so, it pre-stresses the armor of the enemy ship and softens it, makes it get red hot. Then the armor-piercing core hits a red hot piece of armor, and it can penetrate deeper and go inside the ship and do its damage there. Pretty rare shell to have. We only have one, and that's it. So next door I showed you the shell. This is the breech section of a gun. And what happens is this sort of block will rotate and come open, and then you put the shell inside there, and this is what contains all that explosive energy that will send the shell out to its target many, many miles away. This breech section is dated 1918. It belonged to the USS Mississippi, but it's very similar to the type of breech system on a 14-inch gun that we would have here. So the truck that you see right now is going to be coming back down by this road is a 1918 Dodge light repair truck, specially built for the U.S. Army. There's only 4 of these left in the world, and only 2 of them run. So you're getting to see one of the operational ones. So thus far I've been showing you mostly the fort and the physical location of the battery. We've started a vehicle collection to show you the kind of vehicles that were used to maintain and assist the fort with its operation. Every vehicle that you see in this collection was a type of vehicle used here at Fort MacArthur at one point or another in its history. But what happens if somebody lands way north of Fort MacArthur or way south of Fort MacArthur? Well, during World War II, they had these scout cars. And the scout car was designed to be a rapid deployment force that could go and counter an invasion fleet. Now today we might look at it and go, well, it's just a truck. It is just a truck, but it had a 50 caliber machine gun on top, and it also had two 30 caliber machine guns with it. So it's basically an armed gun wagon, if you will, and it was designed to stop mostly infantry assaults and what have you. And these coasted up and down Pacific Coast Highway throughout the war. You could see them all through Los Angeles and also here at Fort MacArthur. Well, thank you everyone for coming along on our tour here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope that you'll be able to come down and see us in person. And keep an eye on us on Facebook, and also check out some of our YouTube shows that we have. We're one of the best kept secrets in Los Angeles, and we hope you'll come see us.